Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Podcast Assemble, show where you come for your rambling geeky download. My name's Tommy, and I'm delighted, as always, to be joined by my friend and co-host from across the pond. It's our resident crooked cop of the pod, DL. How are you, mate?
I'm good. Taking cuts under the table. You can take me to golf. You can take me to lunch.
Golfing again, man.
Yeah.
That's just your life now. You're an old man. Well, we are delighted, more delighted than to have DL here, to be joined by friend of the show and collaborator, Regs. How are you, mate?
Good. That was an unnecessary jab at Ray there, but I appreciate the enthusiasm. Thanks for having me on.
You have to give little digs here and there, right? That's how you know
It's
your
true.
friends.
I just get beat up all the time, don't I?
Look, Regs is a friend of the show and collaborator. He is not only an awesome podcast himself, but also has a background in film. Regs, do you want to give yourself a little introduction?
Sure. Podcasting's sort of just something I do for fun. I kind of stumbled into it, really. But I run a film production company here in Melbourne, Australia, if there happens to be any transcontinental listeners out there. And I have to say this. I was telling you I was going to do this when we had the chat last week. Stop me if you've heard this one, but a Pom, a Yank, and an Aussie walk into a podcast, and hilarity will ensue. But yeah, so I run a film production house. With my business partner Dan, and we have a studio here in Melbourne.
Regs, so what you're saying is you're going to actually add something which is to do with filmmaking to a podcast. Wow, that's something we've never had before.
If you want, I can dumb it down. Like I can
Please
turn it
do.
off if
Tommy's
need be.
slow.
I do think we'll need that, to be quite frank with you.
That's fair.
Hey guys, look, if you want to jump around, there will be time codes in the description. In fact, as with any Chris Nolan movie, listen to it out of order. Go, jump to the end, jump to the beginning, do whatever you want. There's going to be some time dilation throughout this podcast. But what we like to do at the beginning of the show is we like to talk a little bit about what we've been up to. Regs, do you want to give us a couple of bits you've been up to this week?
Sure. Well, I'll talk. I won't talk about work because that's I've been doing some fun shit at work, but my job's always fun.
All right, no need to rub it in. Wow.
Well, it's this is where we're at. I was doing some editing today, and it was a jolly old time. But last weekend I went to the Astor, which is my favourite cinema here in Melbourne. It's a legacy theatre where they play older films.
I know of the Astor.
Of course you would if you've been to Melbourne and you're a cinephile at all. And I went to see the double bill of Who Framed Roger Rabbit and Dick Tracy.
Dude,
And
Who Framed Roger Rabbit? That's a throwback. What a film.
it rules. And I had a screening of it for my 40th last year, actually. That's how much I love that film. But I have never seen it at the Astor, so I went there to see that. And Dick Tracy, which holds up really well. It's sort of a movie that time forgot, comic book movie that time forgot, but it's well worth your time if you can get a hold of a Blu-ray or something. And the other thing I saw that same day, like I was driving home, I'm like, I'm not done with my movie making for the movie watching for the day. I'm gonna stop at my local here in Belgrave, the Cameo, and I went and saw the new Robert Rodriguez joint, Hypnotic.
I've not even heard of that.
Of course you haven't. Do you know why? Because nobody's heard of it. It doesn't even exist. I'm not convinced I saw it myself. But it's a Ben Affleck film, and it's very Inception-y.
That sounds right up your alley, DL.
Yeah, love that.
If you like Inception, don't go and see it, DL. Like I've got to warn you. Like I'm usually a great audience for anything. Like I don't get up in the morning to hate on stuff. It's just not part of my DNA. But that was a bad movie.
So it's a poor man's Inception, and Ben Affleck's a poor man's Leo. So it adds up.
It's kind of like it's a movie that Amazon would have brought out 2 weeks before Inception came out. Do you know what I'm saying? It's sort of like Volcano, Dante's Peak kind of situation.
Yes, that's fair.
They're classics of the genre. What are you talking about?
Have you seen Volcano? It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's what I've been up to.
DL, what have you been up to, buddy?
God, I've been continuing on my cult journey, watching Wild Wild Country on Netflix.
Regs, I don't know if you listened to the last podcast, but DL is on a bit of a cult kick right now for some odd reason.
Yeah.
Well, Riggs, have you seen Yellow Jackets?
No, I have listened to you're well into this, and you were talking about the writer's strike last week, and you were mad that they were like putting it on hold for that shit.
Yeah, it's a problem. It's a problem for me. I'll have to watch more cult documentaries to get my fix if they delay that, which could have terrible results.
Yeah.
They usually do, to be honest. But yeah, Wild Wild Country. It's about this utopian city in Oregon that gets into conflict with this local, tumbleweed town, and they bring in 10,000 people from India that all follow this guy named Bhagwan Sri Rajneesh, and he's leading a cult, which I haven't seen the end of it, but it looks like it's gonna have a
fiery ending.
Yeah, end in conflict.
Great. I can't wait to check that out.
I actually started watching one recently, and I've completely forgot what it was called. Exactly the same setup, except somewhere in the middle of the US. And in fact, it's not the same one because it's not the same name. But like effectively, it's called like the war in the US or something. And like basically, these people who'd started a cult were just like hoarding guns and ammo, and like they were doing it under the guise of protecting their way of life. But it turns out they just were waiting for the police to rock up and start shooting. It's madness.
That's my country. They really do stick to form. I feel like all these cults start the same way. It's like, oh, love, wellness, and it just ends in guns and
child weddings and shit.
Yeah, and just orgies and
Yep.
yeah. Anyway,
This is the most diverse set of what you've been up to I think we've ever had on the podcast. It's fantastic.
It's the kind of energy
Yeah.
we bring tonight.
I got a weird one, and see if you guys have heard about this. I think it's quite new on Netflix. So I sat down, and the partner was like flicking through, and she found this thing called The Alpinist, and it's effectively a documentary about this young dude. I think he's from Canada, not the States, and he was like terrible at school, was not interested, but loved going out hiking and loved free climbing. And effectively, it follows his story of how he got like sponsored and how he kept like disappearing. And then he would just like rock up on the map, and they'd be like, "We're going to follow you, and you're going to like document what you're doing." And it's like, it's a mad story. He's like 22 at this point. It's crazy. And he's like going up like the craziest peaks on his own. He just doesn't like doing it with other people. Have you heard of that?
No.
does he free climb?
Yeah.
I just can't identify with these people.
Terrifies me.
Psychopaths. I can't get into it. I'm like, what are you doing?
You're a regular white dude. Make a podcast like the rest of us.
Yeah,
Exactly.
for fuck's
Can't you
sake.
just be vanilla bread?
Yeah, it's like people who watch Married at First Sight. I'm just like, I don't. What planet are you from? I know they're very different things. Free climbing and watching that show are two. I mean, they're both just equally as dangerous. But I just think, where are
To
we?
your mental health, at least.
I think equally, doing each of those things is
Yeah.
equally as dangerous, right? Getting married at first sight and free climbing, I'd put in the same bucket of danger
That
zone.
and swimming with sharks and shit. You know.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Interestingly, you say that about mental health. I watched a show recently about a guy who was on one of the very original, like, reality TV shows. It was one of these stupid things about, like... it
Road
was Married
Rules
at First-
Challenge?
Probably something like
Real
that.
world?
Yeah, one of
versus
them.
Real
Road
world,
Rules?
probably.
Real
yeah.
Housewives of something. Yeah, one of those. But he was, like, painted as the villain of it. And, like,
course.
for the rest of his life... He's just been hounded and destroyed on social media, and he can't get a real job because he's got the stigma attached to him. All he can do is these like weird public appearances where no one really wants him to be there because he was the bad guy. And he's got this like, he basically ended up like trying to commit suicide a bunch of times, like super depressing.
Jesus. I was
Oh,
going to make
man.
a joke, but I'm not going to anymore.
Same. Now I can't. Well, I still got
Well, yeah, I cut you both off.
I was going to just say, wow, that's an L.
Way to go, fun police.
Well, I did do one other fun thing before we move on this week. I managed to buy the new Zelda game. Now, Reeves, I don't know, you a gamer at all?
Well, no, I'm not. I like.
Well,
the
that's a setup for a story.
Yeah, it's like. All right, so I got an Xbox, and it was mostly so that me and my partner could play Lego games.
Oh, yeah.
And my business partner's a big gamer, and he was Red Dead Redemption this and blah blah blah. And he goes,
Yes!
get into Grand Theft Auto, like, yeah, he was a big fan. So get into Grand Theft Auto, and so I did. So I got it. Whatever the really popular one was, the one where it really hit. I don't know what version it was.
GTA
And,
5, probably. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's still going.
It was just like Xbox 360. So I don't know what there is now, but
Still
that's what
going,
it
so who knows?
was.
It could have been that one.
Yeah. Well, so I was playing this game, and I was playing it for 3 hours. I like most of the time I spent on a scooter driving to the mountains, and I noticed a fruit stand, and I thought, I wonder if I can buy a piece of fruit. And I got out, and I tried to go
In
up
Grand
and-
Theft Auto, you want to buy a piece of fruit.
I don't know. I'm a pacifist. I'm not a violent man. So, and I went up there, but I just pressed buttons and I punched the guy, and then the police came and they chased me on the scooter, and I fell down a thing into a construction site, and I got in the van and I drove, and then I got to the beach and they were shooting at me, and I got in the water and I swam for legitimately 20 minutes, got out onto a dock, killed by a fucking mountain lion. That was my GTA experience. That's when I found out it probably isn't for me.
That's life, isn't it?
Yeah, I
Get
feel
away
like
from the
you
cops.
just managed to get away, and there comes that mountain lion.
Yeah.
You never know the minute, do you? You know. So, but no, I haven't. I am very aware of how big this Zelda game is, though. Yeah.
It is ginormous. It's taking over social media at the
The
moment.
culture as well. It kind of just
Yeah.
feels like everybody's playing it except for me, and I'm just jealous.
It's great. I'll tell you that right now. It's amazing. It's a bit more of the same from the last one, but like it's got minor tweaks. I like it a lot.
And the last one was great.
Yeah. And you know what I'm like, DL and Riggs, you probably don't know because why would you? You don't play that many video games, but I don't like doing the main, like you, going off on a tangent and finding a mountain lion. I don't like doing the main quest. I will get into a game and I will do everything first, and I'll go, oh yeah, there's a game to play.
Is this like where DL's partner spent all that time fucking around in Hogwarts?
Gail would be the other person to
Yeah.
go and play GTA 5 and just go to the market and say, what can I get for groceries?
Try
It's
and buy
been
an
hours.
orange.
The thing about the game now is you could probably do that in a Harry Potter game. You know, these things are so advanced. Like the last Zelda game I remember was Ocarina of Time.
Oh yeah, that's a throwback.
What a
I know,
game.
man. Like that was what 2000 earlier.
Who knows?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Look, we're all old
N64.
here. We get it. There's no need to rub it in.
Yeah.
Hey, look, what we like to do now is we like to move on from this random bumbling bambling about video games and culture, and we talk a little bit about what we've heard in the news. And we don't really mean news. What we actually do is we talk about things we've probably seen on Instagram or Twitter. And most of the time, it's stuff we find interesting and not actually news. Gents, did you hear this week? The Loki series finally has a release date.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I'm excited for this. I don't know, Riggs, you're obviously a big MCU guy. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think I've kind of cooled off on it a lot since post Endgame. It's
Yep.
The only thing that's really captured my attention, or my imagination is probably the better word, is Hawkeye.
Wow.
And I liked Loki fine. I thought the production of it was great and it was really interesting. And Jonathan Majors, less said about that, the better probably. But, he's great. I just... as I've been saying on the show with Addy, the Film Addicts podcast, when we talk about it, I wonder when they're going to start steering somewhere.
Yeah.
Because at the moment, it's just like... This is the most directionless shit.
Did you say ship or shit? Because either work.
If it brings both of them, yeah. I think if Loki brings some specificity, then I'm all in. Yeah. Did you
Amazing.
guys like the first one?
I did like the first one. I love the play of Owen Wilson and what's his
Absolutely.
name? And Tom
Hiddleston.
Tom Hiddleston, yeah. I thought they were quite good together, their comedy. And I do think that show will hopefully tie some stuff together. It does feel like it's one of the ones that's in like the fast track or main lane of where the MCU is going. But I agree, man. There's not a lot that's been going on that's super exciting.
Maybe I've aged out. I don't know.
Can we just go backward just a moment there? I want to like rewind the tape. Hawkeye?
Yeah, that's a good point. Hawkeye.
What's wrong with Hawkeye?
I guess
we all
love a
Hawkeye?
Christmas story. But
I'd like
Hawkeye.
You know what it was? You know the part that got me though? You know the part that sold it for me? It's the moment after he's lost his hearing aid and he has to have a conversation with his son, like via Kate, like writing down what the kid's saying because he can't hear. And then at the end of the conversation, you just see. I mean, Jeremy Renner's probably the strongest actor they have apart from RDJ, and like that moment, I was like, oh, okay, this is a real thing. This is a real. Like I look for that. I look for truth and emotion in my shit. It's not like. Big spectacle is what I'm looking for all the time. And I just found it.
This is what we lack in this podcast. Actual nuance for movie and film knowledge.
Emotive truth.
I wouldn't say nuance.
We just go,
Jesus
he's got a
Christ.
bow and arrow. He's an idiot.
I mean, that's a perfectly sound argument also. Like,
I just don't think I got that far, to be honest. I didn't get to the emotive sign language hearing aid.
I actually really liked Hawkeye. I think it was good because I watched it at Christmas. So I
That's
kind of
perfect
like,
Christmas time, yeah.
yeah, exactly. And I kind of went with the mood of it. And like I was watching Die Hard and I was watching Home Alone. And, it's like it was building the Christmas spirit.
It's basically what that show is. It's
Yeah.
Die Hard and Home Alone.
Literally.
At the same time.
With a bow and arrow.
Exactly. Well, what's the release date? You didn't say.
It's coming out on the 6th of October this year. You guys excited?
Oh, fuck. That's a bit of a... I'll be ready to watch Hawkeye again straight after.
Or maybe it leads into the second series.
Oh, don't tease me.
I highly doubt it, but for you, Riggs, I will pray.
I don't think like no joke here, but I think Jeremy Renner's going to be doing much for a little bit.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
follow him on Instagram.
Yeah.
He's doing
Pretty bad.
Yeah. No, he's doing better. He's
Yeah.
doing like exercises and stuff.
So he's back to life, back to reality.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Apparently he was playing the hero, wasn't he, when he tried to stop
saved his nephew.
Yeah.
I think he like left it on. Maybe actually this is the first. They'll look back at history and say this was when the AI tried to take over because the tractor drove into him and no one was driving the tractor.
Yeah, well, apparently there's safeguards on those tractors against that happening, so no one's quite sure how
That's
it
what I'm
happened.
saying. They're rewriting the code.
The ad for that new Garth Edwards film came out today. The creator with John David Washington. There's some shit going on we don't know about.
There's
I've
some
seen this
stuff
movie.
going on. Well, it's the Terminator, isn't it? They told us in the 80s. Like, we knew it was coming.
Yeah,
We should put the Terminator on one of our lists, by the way. Either whether it's sci-fi or movies our dads told us about we should watch.
Why am I just so over Arnold Schwarzenegger though?
I don't
Anytime
know.
you mention an Arnold movie, I'm like, oh god.
Even T2?
Even T2.
Oh, I'm not sure. Riggs, do you want to start a new podcast? Film
Podcast
Assemble.
Disassemble. Yeah, Film Assemble. Film assembles. That's what I do all day. I don't want to do it in my off hours. Shit.
Fair play. Fair play. Well, DL, I've got a piece of news you might be interested in.
Let's
Did
hear
you
it.
hear this week that Archer is coming to an end?
Dude, why? It's still so good.
I feel like they've just come out of the shit part and they're up to some actually half decent show again.
Yeah, they got out of that like weird each season is a daydream, but I actually liked some of those.
Of course you did.
Why can't Archer just be like Family Guy or Simpsons and just go on forever until I die?
Great question. Pass it on to someone else. Someone else will do it. Like, it doesn't have to be this, because the guy who created it is still involved. I think he wants to move on with his life. But Riggs, are you a big Archer fan?
I've seen some of it, like first seasons and bits and pieces, and the first episode of that where he gets an erection while holding a gun to his mother's head, like I don't think I've laughed that hard at an animated show ever. Like that was just. And she's
I thought
like,
you were going to say
"What the
I don't.
fuck?"
I thought you were going to say I've not felt so in line with the character in my entire life.
I've never empathized with an animated character more.
I've never
Bring
felt
that nuance.
seen. I've never felt so seen.
Dude, that pilot fucks. It's
So
like
good.
it is one of the all-time pilots.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
cry.
I love the style too. You know,
I've definitely talked about this on this podcast before. I had a really weird experience with the first episode of that show. So someone told me about it, and it was probably about 3 seasons in by the point I got around to it. And I downloaded this is back when you had to download stuff if you didn't have streaming. And I downloaded what I thought was the first episode. And someone, with the most painstakingly done I can imagine, gone in and replaced every frame of Archer with a velociraptor. And I am not shitting you. Like, even his dialogue was just raptor noises. And it's the best thing I think I've ever seen. I watched 20 minutes of that before realizing.
Did you
hang
think
on a
that was
minute.
legit?
I wasn't sure. I didn't know. So I just sat there and I was like, this is weird, but here we are.
some people
Wow.
just use their powers for evil, don't they? Like, it's just like, why
Well,
do
I'd
you
say
need to
that's
do
that's the opposite.
that? Yeah, I guess.
I just can't imagine having the time to do
Man,
that.
animating that kind of keyframe animation
Oh, it's
takes
amazing.
fucking forever. Like I was
Yeah.
doing some of that today, and it's a long process.
It's probably not easy. He he gets no satisfaction from it. He doesn't get to see you
No.
watching it confused. I get satisfaction from this. He gets nothing.
I'm going to find that one day and post it on our Instagram because it's one of the best things I've ever seen. And it's so weird because I got up to the bit where they were doing the torture. You know, where he's being tortured and it's just a velociraptor being tortured. I was like, there's something wrong with this.
I'm gonna have to find this now. That's gonna change my life.
It's going to change your life. Well, anyway, Archer is coming out. Season 14 is coming out in August and it's going to be the final season. You guys got any news this week? Anything you guys have heard?
Yeah, I've seen a couple things. I might bring back weird news
Oh yes,
this
please.
week. Did you?
We haven't done that in a good 20 episodes.
Yeah. Did you see that the Flamin' Hot Cheetos origin story that you
No.
always wanted to get
Yeah.
is getting made? And
this
it's had
real?
its first poster be revealed. Yes, it's real. Unless the internet lies, in which case, it's not. But I read it and was like, oh wow, this is definitely must-see television.
What? Who's in this?
I don't know. I just love Flamin' Hot Cheetos, so I gotta know really how
It's that
they.
tiger, isn't it? Probably. Is it,
Yeah, it is.
Is it
Yeah,
a
it's-
Cheeto tiger or something?
Oh my god, yeah. That's a Family Guy joke, right? He crushes them up and snorts them.
Yeah, what went wrong though?
Yeah, that's right.
Where he had to
Flamin'
go
Hot Cheetos.
flaming hot. Anyway, so that was pretty odd, and I saw that, and then I saw that. Well, I guess it's old news. Apparently, you told me, but Reed Richards.
Oh
Gone?
yeah.
Casting news. Did you
Casting
hear that?
rumors. Riggs, have you had any casting rumors for Fantastic Four?
Just that Kylo Ren is
Yes,
looking at
yes.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
But I thought the move would be make him Doctor Doom, but I mean,
I thought
I
so
don't- I
too.
don't
He'd
know
be a
what I'm
great
doing.
Doom, but then maybe he doesn't want to be a villain anymore.
yeah, but I mean, it's also the thing I heard ages ago was that it's period, that it's like set in the 60s.
Oh, really? I heard that a
Yeah,
while ago,
I mean-
but I didn't know if that was going to stick because of. I mean, they're doing time travel and stuff in the MCU now, and everything, the different multiversal things. So yeah, they could, I suppose.
A lot of
I just
opportunity there.
when you said that, I just imagined Adam Driver dressed as Austin Powers. Groovy baby.
with the floppy hair. Why not, man?
Yeah, they do.
Have you seen that guy's TED talk?
Who?
Adam Driver's TED talk on
No.
the acting in the military.
I think I've heard of this.
Fucking incredible.
We talked about him in
like
the military the other week. Yeah.
Yeah, really, really intelligent and thought provoking and just a master of his craft in a lot of
Wow.
different respects. So I have a lot of respect for Adam Driver because he made 64 as well. 65, sorry.
He's definitely mastered hex. When he shaves that off, they are not great ears.
Is that right? Wow.
To get a little bit personal.
Just look up his military headshot.
Yeah, it's
It's
not
pretty.
great.
It's pretty easy. He's had a glow up.
Wow, okay.
He got that Hollywood hair.
I'll check the internet for that one later.
No, but he's the man.
Yeah. I mean, it'd
Oh,
be
we
great.
love
It'd
him.
be great.
So every year, Riggs, I don't know if you know this, but every year we do an awards for the end of the year. So we go back to all the movies of the prior year and say like, best worst movie and what's the most Aquaman movie. And we actually have a specific award for Adam Driver.
Yeah, it's because it's based off of his performance in Star Wars.
Okay.
It's basically as if wasn't given great material to work with,
Yeah.
but rose to the occasion anyway. Because no one really understands why Kylo Ren's a whiny bitch. He has no reason to be, but we really believe that he was tormented because of that acting. So Adam Driver award.
Yeah, sure. Maybe what's the reverse of helicopter parenting? I guess that's what the problem was.
Yeah.
Whatever
I
happened.
guess.
Do
Submarine
you explain helicopter
parenting.
parenting?
Oh, helicopter parenting is like parents who are constantly, on their
Hovering.
kids, like, do this, do that, don't do this, don't do that, get in the cupboard with some spinach or whatever it is that they
Yeah.
feel they need to do to get their kid to grow up and be
Is that a thing
healthy. And
parents do now? Put them in the code with spinach?
I have no idea. I don't have any children, so maybe it's probably healthy.
Sounds like a past trauma.
Yeah. Well, I think 65 is probably a good. He's going to get something this year. Then I look forward to seeing the ceremony because that movie is it's totally forgettable. It's totally consumable. It's sugar covered, popcorn. But I fucking loved it because he commits. I've never seen someone so convincingly kill a dinosaur.
Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe that's it. Maybe it's the committal. My biggest problem with that movie, my biggest problem with that movie was when he gave the little grenades to the girl, and she could have just used one because it's a tiny little shitty dinosaur running after her, and she used the whole bag. And you're like, dude, you need them.
Another reason not to have kids because you never know when they're going to fuck up a grenade situation. So
It's fair. It's fair. There's the birth control I needed.
You should put
Yeah,
that on a
that's-
motivtional poster in a room somewhere.
I've got it behind me actually. You can't see it because of the soundproofing, but yeah, that's it.
Anyway, Adam Driver casting rumor as Reed Richards.
Yeah.
Wasn't the casting rumor I wanted. I want him as Snape in the new HBO Harry Potter, but maybe we'll get that later.
Cool.
I actually had a rebuttal for that, and I just remembered. So in the part of the contract with J.K. Rowling for the movies, they had to select British actors where they could. So I wonder if that would come into effect and stop him doing it, because he's obviously American. I wonder if he's not able to do it.
Well, that would suck. And I would tell J.K. Rowling to pound sand.
Wow. all right.
There's a few other things you can tell J.K. Rowling while you're at it, actually.
Yeah.
100%. I think she's probably lost some of that pull. Anyway.
Well, a lot of that pull, apparently. Anyway, we'll move on from J.K. Rowling because nobody wants to talk about it. Guys, did you hear this week, talking of casting rumors, there's been some casting rumors surrounding Superman for James Gunn's Superman Legacy movie.
Yeah, right.
Now, apparently... Now, I didn't know this. You may know this, Reegs. Been the film buff, the film addict, should I say.
That's what they call me.
Apparently, Nicholas Hoult, you remember Nicholas Hoult? He was sort of semi-beast in some of those X-Men movies. He's in that
He's
new
a portion
Dracula
of
film with
beast,
Nick
yeah.
Cage. Yeah, he's done a few things. He was apparently the final choice between him and Robert Pattinson to play the Batman.
Shut the front door.
I can't see him as the Batman at all.
No.
And Dre's looking confused. Doesn't know who Nicholas Hoult is.
No, I'm thinking about it. I know who Nicholas Hoult is. He's in Skins.
He is. He's too clean cut. But then again, I mean, he did a pretty dark turn as J.D. Salinger in Rebel in the Rye, the J.D. Salinger biopic that Danny Strong directed. But yeah, I mean,
Well, getting off topic, he is one of the final contenders, apparently, to play the new Superman. Thoughts?
he's going to play. I thought he was going to play Lex.
Final contenders: Nicholas Hoult, David Cornsweet. That's a terrible last name.
You change that. You change that right away, wouldn't
You
you?
would change that immediately, wouldn't you?
Especially if you're an actor.
I feel like if you're just a
Cornsweet.
generic white dude with brown hair in Hollywood, though, you're pretty much up for the role of Superman. Like, you could go.
Yeah, I think
if
I'm
you were
up
in
for
Hollywood
it,
DL,
yeah.
you'd be there. Yeah, exactly.
He's
Like,
already
as
got
soon
the
as our
glasses.
podcasts take off, yeah.
Podcaster, cast as that's what would happen. A member of the podcast assemble, crew is cast as Superman, and the internet explodes with all of these people being shitty. I guarantee it.
I don't see it, though.
There'll be people in the streets fucking killing each other and eating chairs.
Sounds like a Brit on holiday, to be honest.
That is a soccer hooligan joke, actually.
It
so
absolutely
there you go.
is.
Enjoy.
Before we move on, then, any final bits of news, gents?
I have one. This I only heard this a few minutes before jumping on, because I just thought I'd let you guys. But this to me is just bizarre, and it also ties in nicely to the video that you guys have on YouTube channel at the moment. The Flash, Who Gives a Shit, which is the best name for a video that's ever happened.
Out right now. Go check it out on our podcast Assemble YouTube channel.
Yeah, man, hit that like and subscribe button. These guys are fucking.
We've got
Comedy-
nearly 250
legends.
subscribers now. I feel like that's good.
Spectacular, man. It's really good. It all counts. But anyway, Stephen King, the Stephen
yeah.
King who wrote The Shining, Tommyknockers, bunch of other ones.
I can't not laugh at Tommyknockers. I'm sorry.
Tommyknockers is just a ridiculous picture. But yeah, no, Stephen King wrote one of the greatest books on writing. It's just called On Writing. It's part biography, part text on how to be a writer. Just amazing book. He saw The Flash, and he tweeted, "I got an advanced screening of The Flash today. As a rule, I don't care a lot for superhero movies, but this one is special. It's heartfelt, funny, eye-popping. I love it." And someone has then tagged James Gunn and said, "Is this true?" And James Gunn has replied, "Hell yes, it is."
Wowza.
Tom Cruise and Stephen King both vouch for The Flash. I feel myself being swayed.
The hype train has begun.
I couldn't think of two more disparate ends of the spectrum, though. Like,
I know. It would be like if a Beanie Baby and the Archduke Franz Ferdinand both said The Flash was good. You're like, what? It wasn't even related
It must
at all.
be good.
I'd be firstly wondering how a Beanie Baby could tell me that, but that'd be hilarious.
Oh, no.
Sentient.
What do we do if
yeah,
it's good?
We go hard into that.
What do we do if it's good? I love making fun of DC.
Go and watch my YouTube video, and you'll see all how I feel about that. That's such a good segue, Reegs. I really do appreciate it.
Mwah.
Gents, let's move on. If you guys have heard anything, by the way, hit us up at Podcast Assemble on Instagram or thepodcastassemble@gmail.com. You can send us memes, tag us in stuff. We love it when you do. DL, do you want to preface the main topic for this week?
Yes, I guess you could call this a continuation of an anthology that we do with Christopher Nolan, or you could call it a superhero movie rewatch. This week we're doing Christopher Nolan's Batman Begins.
We are clashing cultures. It's fantastic. Now, before we even start talking about Batman Begins, I want to ask, Riggs, are you a big Nolan guy?
I do. Yes. Okay. That's
I
yes
do.
is the answer.
I feel like
I'm just trying to answer it. I'm just trying to answer it in a way that doesn't, be super positive, super negative. Because I'm not, avid about all of his films. I am probably the one person. I think there's 3 or 4 of us. We have a club. We like Tenet.
Oh, I was gonna say surely Tenet was running through your mind as you hesitated. Oh.
Who was it? You said the most interesting thing about that, DL. You said that where Inception was, I can't remember the word you used. Inception's like not convoluted. Inception is intricate, but Tenet is convoluted. I thought that was such a beautiful way to put the difference between those two movies because they share so much DNA.
Yeah, they really do. I when I watched Tenet, I wanted it to be as intricate. And there was a couple times, like at the end, where they tied some nice bows on things, and I'm like, oh yeah, but it was in the last 2 minutes, and there was 2 hours of confusion.
Yeah, and I get that. And but I, as a filmmaker, I think he's one of the purest. Like I don't believe in the auteur theory because there's too many people that need to make a film. Just because you write and direct something doesn't mean you're an auteur. But he's constructing original narratives in a large marketplace, and he's doing it his own way. He's shooting on film. He's shooting in IMAX. He doesn't lean into special effects. He is a classicist, and I appreciate that about him.
All right, now the real question is going to be, and this is for both of you, and DL, I don't think you've got as big a handle on this as I think Reegs will, but who is your Batman?
It's Keaton. Batman Returns.
Oh, he's excited for the Flash then. No wonder.
No, I'm fucking not. Let's get nuts. You can kiss my balls, mate. That is just ridiculous. No, it's Keaton. Batman Returns is my favorite Batman movie, and the reason why, and I've said this before, and I've got a show on YouTube called The Stitch Up where I did an episode on Batman Returns, and my argument for that being the best film is this: if you give the script for The Dark Knight to any other director that isn't Christopher Nolan, you get mostly the same product. Like his Batman films are fairly atypical, but his of the genre. His other stuff has more flavor, but they're fairly normal. You give the script of Batman Returns to anybody who isn't Tim Burton, and the result is radically different. So it's a big swing. And also I think, everyone always says that the Dark Knight is, the godfather of superhero movies. You remove Heath Ledger as the Joker from that film and it suffers almost 50%.
Wow. Interesting. DL, who's your Batman?
Yeah, I think I would have normally said Christian Bale, but after this rewatch, I may be open to change.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, who are you going to say?
I'm not sure. I guess I kind of want to see another Pattinson movie. Because the thing about Patton Bat, if you actually think, yes, that's a thing. I think Tommy coined it.
I think I stole it from someone. It's fine.
If you actually think about like in the real world, like what would Batman be like? Somebody that like is so traumatized that they decide to dress up in a costume of leather and become a vigilante. It's very likely they'd be like an emo eyeliner. Like I could see it.
There's a very fine line between being Batman and being in a gimp suit.
Yes, that's my point. And I think that it's not really a fine line. It's more like a Venn diagram.
That's there is definitely.
It's the overlap is Batman.
You know what it actually reminds me of is that Batman film is I just recently reread James O'Barr's The Crow. Graphic novel series from the late 80s that they then would go on to make a film with Brandon Lee, directed by Alex Proyas, who's an Australian. And yeah, there's a lot of that Batman picture in those original Crow graphic novels.
Yeah.
You're totally right. It's Joy Division. That's and The Cure and Nine Inch Nails. That's exactly what you're on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I love that
completely
stuff.
Agree. I would say my Batman. Thanks for asking, guys.
No
by
one
the way.
cares.
I appreciate that.
It's Will Arnett. I know it is.
I'd say I'm still open. I think there's still a good Batman out there to come that's going to be better than what we've seen. I don't think any of I think Patton Bat, as you mentioned, is probably the best culmination of what we've had on page. So like he does the detecting stuff. He can do the fighting stuff. He yeah, he's lithe. He's like, you know, he's not the tank that you get in the Frank Miller stuff, like The Dark Knight Returns. But like, I feel like there's one out there that's going to bring all of them elements. Like, he's not the smartest guy in the world, is he? Let's be honest. Like, he's not the world's greatest detective. He's not all those things. And I think there's going to come one movie in the next like 15 years, and it's going to bring all that together. I don't think it's going to be James Gunn, but I think it's coming.
What a punt.
I think he's clumsy and furious because it's year 2, and I like that about that picture. He doesn't win.
Absolutely,
and that's such an interesting. And by not winning, he becomes a hero, as opposed to just a blind, hand of vengeance.
Now we're all getting way too excited talking about Batman.
But
let's
we have to give Riggs his credit for calling out the
absolutely.
true best Batman, which was subtly
Michael
you
Caine.
said Will Arnett. Which, by the way, those were the best videos. What is it, E-Bombs World?
which ones are they?
Where it's just these
Batman
skits.
finds his voice.
Yeah.
That dude's on Instagram now. He's hilarious. He's like a prop comedian. That guy is great. The best one is, have you seen the one where he can't stop his dirty mind? And it's with Talia al Ghul when she like stabs him at the end of Dark Knight Rises. And he's like, what you're saying is, if you press that red button, there's an explosion. It's so good.
So it is Will Arnett under that. I didn't realize that. Or did I misread your joke?
Oh no, I said Will Arnett because he's the voice of Batman in the Lego movies.
Oh God.
What
a swing and a miss.
I saw a YouTube video recently. I've been waxing lyrical about a YouTube channel called Nerdstalgic of late. They just did a video about how they believe that Batman movie, the Lego Batman movie, is the best Batman movie. Now, talking of Batman movies, let's talk Batman Begins. Now, gents, what we like to do now is we like to do our stupid plot summaries. We realized a long time ago we are not good at reducing a movie or whatever it is, a TV show, mainly TV shows, down to their finer elements. So we like to give you the dumbest version of what this movie is. And I'm going to leave it to professionals today. So perhaps Reegs, you could go first.
Fuck. You want a real one? I've done a silly one.
A silly, stupid plot summary. Who would have guessed?
Silly, stupid plot summary. I thought that was the point. Okay, this is my plot summary. Spoilt billionaire in rubber S&M outfit thinks he can solve the world's problems by punching poor people in the neck. Fairly accurate. That's.
I mean, you've described every Batman movie there, but that's fair. I like it a lot.
Very, very true. Okay.
DL, what's yours?
Bruce Wayne's parents die, spoilers, in a tragic double murder that is endemic of the corrupt city that is Gotham. This eventually drives Bruce to find his own way of creating justice by apparently chain-smoking his way through the international criminal world to become a ninja with a bat fetish.
Oof. I do like the ninja parts of this movie.
Ninja with a bat fetish is probably the best thing I've ever
I think
heard.
we're going to put that on a slogan somewhere. That can be another inspirational poster from the show. Gents, can you guess for me, firstly, the IMDb score? DL, what do you reckon?
8.5.
Reeks?
I'm going to do the Price is Right and go 8.6.
Ooh, it's 8.2.
Oof.
You went the wrong way, my man. DL takes a point for that one. Now you go first this time, Reeks. Rotten Tomatoes, percentage, what do you reckon?
79.
Okay, DL?
I think didn't this have critical acclaim? And audiences like I'm
Chris
thinking
Nolan.
this is 91.
Oh, wow. My maths is bad. It's 84. So I think Reeks was closer for that one.
Closer, yeah, I was 79.
Both
for that
missed.
One. Your maths is bad.
Drastically.
Neither of you were that close, but that's all right.
It's all right. It's not maths assemble, don't worry.
Yeah, I do think. Yet.
Shit podcast.
Oh God.
Finally, then, what do you reckon the Metacritic score was? As it's 1-1, Reeks, you can go first.
How do they do this one?
Well,
Is it
this is just
percentage or is it-
this is the combination. It's a percentage.
It's of all the reviews out there.
Oh, right. It'd be in the 85.
DL?
I think they're harsher. They tend to be harsher because they include all the like really gnarly
We've
critics.
done a lot of these, you can tell.
It's 72.
Oh, it's 70.
Woo!
Oh, they were harsh on this movie. They were harsh.
Yeah.
Now, this is, of course, yet, as DL mentioned, another of our Chris Nolan anthologies. But the interesting thing I find about this movie is this is only his 4th directorial credit. How mad is that? So he did The Following, he did Memento, he did Insomnia, and then he did this. That's madness, right?
I guess it makes sense.
If you think about the way that these movies are made, that's what happens. I mean, the if you look at something like the Spider-Man trilogy from the MCU, the guy who had directed that made one film. It was called Cop Car. Kevin Bacon in it. And was given the opportunity. You know, Chloe Zhao,
The best actor alive.
Yeah, of course, he is the best actor alive. You know, Chloe Zhao, she ended up doing the. I mean, everyone thinks that she got that off the back of Nomadland winning Academy Awards. Nomadland had been finished and released before she got that job. You know,
Interesting.
They give these people chances sometimes because they cost less. But my understanding was that Nolan had a pretty strong take, and he got together with Goya and put together a pitch, and that's kind of how it happened. He wanted to set it real world, and there's a lot of noir DNA in this film, and you can see that in Insomnia, you can see that in Memento, you can see that in the final.
Definitely Memento.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Have you seen a lot of Nolan's movies?
I've seen all of them, yeah.
Oh, well, that's going to be good for you because we're going to rank the ones we've seen so far at the end of the show.
I've done my ranking, don't you even worry about it, mate.
And look, this is a phenomenal cast full of some regulars for Nolan who's become regulars since this over the years. But listen to this. Just pick a few names off the top of the hat. Christian Bale, Michael Caine, Liam Neeson. I hate him, by the way. Katie Holmes, Gary Oldman, Cillian Murphy, Ken Watanabe, Morgan Freeman. Like, what on earth is this fourth movie? It's like, how did he attract all these guys?
I don't know.
I think it's probably, like the Batman hadn't been redone in a while. Like, you've got to remember the Batman before this was Batman and Robin.
Yep.
And you say Christian Bale at the top of that list because he's Batman, but yeah, I mean, he was coming off the back of being the bad guy in Shaft.
Yep.
And American Psycho, like, and he'd just done The Machinist.
Yeah, I was gonna say, didn't he drop a load of weight before this? And he had to put a ton of weight back on.
And then went on the Batman diet.
I don't know what that is.
It was it was a lot of, go look up his workout.
Protein.
It's gnarly. Yeah.
Well then, shall we talk a little bit about the plot of this movie? I usually throw it to DL, but Riggs, as you're our special guest today, why don't you give us just a vague overview of what happens in this?
Well, it's the Batmans, and does some ninja stuff, and the end. You have it's the is that good enough, or did I?
Yeah, it's great. That's we just end here, and thank you.
You're welcome. It is a hero's journey in the most traditional sense of the word. It's a 4-act structure in which a hero is born or a hero is tested. A hero goes on a journey. A hero is changed. A hero is born, and the hero triumphs.
All done through the lens of a Chris Nolan movie, and that's what I like about it.
Yeah, it definitely doesn't. It takes a few watches for you to go, hang on. I know I've seen this before, because of course you have. You've seen it everywhere, every time you've seen a movie like this. But just his construction of things. But yeah, so you have Bruce Wayne, tragically loses his parents as a young man, and then as a early 20-something, goes on a travel 8-year journey across the globe to train to become, a combatant, someone who can go after the criminals in the corrupt society. Meets his mentor Ducard, who, spoilers, ends up being Ra's al Ghul, the ultimate villain of the picture.
Liam Neeson is a villain in any picture. I fucking hate that guy. I don't care what anyone says. He's the worst actor.
You don't like him as an actor, or you don't like him as a human being?
Up until the whole racist thing, I was fine with him as a human being. Yeah, it's the actor thing that I don't understand, and I just don't get him. Why is he an action hero?
I didn't know about this racist thing.
We'll steer away from that.
Of course. But my point is, you've had hate in your heart for this guy for a long time.
Let me frame this deal. You know this well, but Reeves, in case you haven't heard all 104 up to of our podcasts now, in case you haven't listened back to all of them, don't worry about it. My reason for disliking Liam Neeson is a very, very specific one. So you've seen the film Taken, as I assume most people have.
Oh yeah.
So there's a very specific scene in that movie, right? So he's what in that 55, 60, roughly? Somewhere in that age range?
108.
Yeah, he's a little bit of an older gent. The whole point is he's on this mission, and to that point I was like, oh yeah, this is a classic older gent. He's going on his journey. He's trying to save his daughter. And then there's a scene when he's on a bridge and he sees a boat floating under the bridge. And it's a good, I don't know, few hundred yards down, and he just jumps off and lands on the deck. And I'm like, he's 60 if he's a day. His knees right now are porridge. I don't care what you think. There is not a shred of his legs left. And like he gets up and he runs around and kicks the crap out of 100 guys. It's like, no, I'm out. And then they kept making those fucking movies.
3 of the motherfuckers. Yeah.
Tommy's the guy that's like, oh, how'd they get the iron chains to get the dragon out of the ice in Game of Thrones in a movie about dragons? Or show, I should say.
It was like when I sent you that message where I was like, the most unreasonable thing about the Meg is the fact that Jason Statham's character has that physique and is supposed to be a drunk. And then DL, you were like, does he know the movie's about a giant fucking shark? I'm like, yes, that's the joke. That's the joke.
Fair.
This is.
But yeah, I mean, I understand. Sometimes you just have actors who you don't like, and I got to tell you, my friends, Katie Holmes. I'm sorry. I don't know who gave her a SAG card, but they should be put in prison. Like she is fucking.
Well, let's wait till we get
horrible.
to performances then to get into Kate Holmes, because I've got a bit of a different take to yours. But this is effectively a new take on Batman Year One, right? So I think it maybe pulls from some of the Frank Miller comics of the Year One, but it is a lot. It is very much Chris Nolan's story, and that's what I like about this one. Can we save plot holes till the end?
Plot holes?
Or
There's none of those.
There is a there's a beautiful plot hole in this film. Reeks, do you know the plot hole in this film?
Well, it can't be as big as the one in Batman and Robin, which I'll get to.
Oh, it's worse. I promise you right now. All right, then. Well, as you're already talking about
all right,
performances,
I don't know it.
Let's do it then.
Can't wait.
I have to give a shout out to the best actor in this movie. He's the best actor alive, which is Jack Gleeson, who played King Joffrey in Game of Thrones, for his brief cameo.
You're him, aren't you? Get fucked, you little shit.
And everyone's like, yes, you are him.
No one will believe me.
Who the fuck do you think it is, you idiot? He's climbing up the side of your building in a
gimp
bat
suit.
costume.
It's the boogeyman. Yeah.
I'm here to see your mum, kid. Fuck off.
What do you reckon, DL? What do you
King
reckon about the
Joffrey.
portrayal of Bruce Wayne in this? I can't even speak.
I actually think Christian Bale slayed the Bruce Wayne alter ego.
Sure.
I think
I
that
liked
he
it.
did a really good job with that because he's just a bit, English and pompous. I know he's not in
Brings a bit
this,
of his Britishness
but I
out.
know he's English, so I'm like, oh, you're killing it.
I related too, actually. There was one thing that made me laugh. I mentioned before he's not the world's greatest detective. He's not. There is a great bit in it where it shows he's not quite the most intelligent man in the room, which is absolutely fine, to be honest, because Morgan Freeman's there, he is God. We all know this. So there is a bit when he's just been drugged by the Scarecrow and he wakes up in bed. And Morgan Freeman's talking about the proteins and the things he did to synthesize an antidote. And he's like, am I supposed to understand any of that? And I'm like, he is not the Batman from the
No, I
comics.
just want you to know how hard it was. Yeah, exactly.
I actually loved that scene. I
did.
Morgan Freeman in this was great. I forgot how cool he was in this. And,
In general, he's
Yeah.
the coolest man in the room.
yeah.
Well, I mean, that scene is indicative of it. Is a great moment where, Bruce doesn't know that
Fox?
Fox.
Fox.
Lucian. What a name.
doesn't
Lucius.
Lucian. Yeah, such a good name. And he's like, drinking the drink, and he steps into frame, and then he's like, "Fuck, I didn't know he was here." Like he's very nuanced. But the interesting thing about Christian Bale as an actor, the intensity that he brings to everything is that he clearly takes it seriously. He has a Batman, he has a Bruce Wayne when he's out of costume, and he has a Bruce Wayne, the boy billionaire. And the boy billionaire is the one who buys that. I'm making some changes about the pool.
So good.
Yeah, I like that scene.
He is putting that on like it is a performance, and I'm also reminded of him in The Prestige, where the reason his accent is so exaggerated is because he's trying to cover the fact that it's two of the same people, like it's him and his brother. I think it's a really specific thing that he's doing when he's got to be that kind of that Bruce Wayne. And the other person who did it as well was Kevin Conroy.
Fair. Conroy's voice in all animated stuff and even the games. Wow, he does that well.
Yeah.
But isn't Michael Keaton the one who did the first ever Batman changes his voice to Bruce Wayne and Batman?
He just brought it down an octave, and besides, he barely speaks in those two pictures. I like a monosyllabic Batman.
Same. I'm absolutely with you on that. But you mentioned about Katie Holmes before. Now, let's talk about that. Like, you don't like her in these films.
I don't want to win. I went to the song. I recently tried to rewatch an episode of Dawson's Creek just as a curiosity. Oh fuck, man! It's like looking into a parallel dimension. I can't do it.
Let's talk about her. This was peak.
I rated her in this. I thought she was better. Who came after her? Maggie Gyllenhaal. I did not like Maggie Gyllenhaal in that role.
This was peak Scientology with
Totally.
with Tom Cruise, right?
Jumping on Oprah's sofa.
I don't.
2005, absolutely.
Yeah, I didn't get that vibe from her watching the movie, but knowing, like, in that back of my head while I was watching it, it made me
You
just
really
think,
have a thing about Scientology, don't you? When we get big and
Cults.
famous off this podcast,
Dude, this cult.
they're coming to get you, man. They're coming to get you.
I look. She kind of just felt like she was in like a CSI show, like it was that level of acting.
Perfect.
You know what I mean?
It's perfect. Yeah. That's exactly what
Yeah,
I'm
but
doing.
she's pretty.
That's fair.
Yeah.
I'm not. I don't know,
So's a cocker spaniel, man. Like, come on.
dude. Now we know way more about you than we need to. You were really affected by those early Disney movies, making Maid Marian really hot, right?
It was the Aristocats. That's what did it for me.
I don't love Maggie Gyllenhaal. I'm sorry, I can't get behind her.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't need it. Maggie Gyllenhaal is weak sauce in a lot of movies, apart from Donnie Darko, but where she's playing opposite her more talented brother. Not more talented, just differently talented. But
Well, let's say more talented.
yeah, I was just trying to
Let's
be
say
nice.
how it is.
The problem with Katie Holmes for me in this picture is that I'm very aware that she's acting.
Yes.
I don't know if it was this role in particular. She was actually really good in a season of Ray Donovan that I saw her in. She played like the daughter of a person who owned a football team, like a mogul, and she got into some stuff with Ray Donovan, who's the fixer. And she was great in that. And I recently rewatched Disturbing Behavior for another podcast, and you know, she's quite good in that. But she's playing a preteen or teen sort of thing, but just. It's the smirk out the side of her mouth. She doesn't have any range. That's my big issue.
I nearly said that.
Whereas everybody else in this movie does.
She has one very specific acting talent, and it's acting with one side of her face only.
Yeah.
Which is
exactly.
really
It looks
confusing.
like someone's hit her with
Look, we're getting very taken away with Kate Holmes here. There's a lot of other cast to get to. So, very quickly, what did you think of Gary Oldman as pre-police Commissioner Gordon?
amazing.
Favorite part of the movie.
Amazing. He's
Really?
He's wonderful. Yeah, he is. He's so great.
Yeah, I think his dynamic with Christian Bale is my favorite. It's like, I think the thing they nailed best in this movie and in the rest of the series, I guess. But this is the first time you see it, the origin of it with the stapler. It's so good.
The stapler's a
Now
good
there's
scene.
now we're two.
Ah, it's great.
This is good.
His intro where Flask tries to get him, he goes, I'm going to keep giving this to Chad Ticketees. And he's like, there's nothing wise about what you do, Flask. Like that is, and then he's like, I'm no rat. That's straight from year one. Like that's perfect. And he's also a bit of he's got a bit of moxie about him at the end where he's like saying to Batman, you might be the problem now. You're going to cause issues. And he's like, you're wearing a mask. Like
that's the hypothetical they all have to live with, right? And I like how he's written. He's clearly written to be exactly that. Like he arcs up when he's hinted he might be a rat. Like I love all of that. I think it's really well done.
Oh, it's Gary Oldman, baby. Like he's just the best.
Let's talk about Liam Neeson then.
Well, we know how you feel about this.
Well, look, he's taken.
Why don't you just start? I can see you're bursting at the seams here.
I actually don't mind Liam Neeson in this. It's annoying. It annoys me how much I don't mind him in this film.
He's great in this.
He's pretty good in this.
It's almost a bit Adam Driver. It's like we don't get much backstory, but I still think he's like very engaging.
He's very engaging.
Yeah.
And I think the fact he has limited movement in this makes it really, really his speed.
He did his yoga.
He's doing all sorts of fly kicks and ninja swips.
When
and
does he do a fly
sword
kick?
Fighting on frozen lakes and stuff. What are you talking about? I don't know. He's flipping around, kicking
He
people,
is,
isn't he? In the train sequence.
All over. Anytime he's on screen, basically.
He does no spin kicks in this
No
movie.
spin kicks? I thought I saw a couple.
My favorite actual scene in this movie, I think, is the part where Liam Neeson's training Bruce to be effectively Batman, be a ninja, and he has to face his fears. He takes the fear toxin, and he is surrounded by ninjas, and Liam Neeson's trying to find him, and he gets the cut on his sleeve, and that's how he tricks Neeson into thinking. So it's such a good scene.
Yeah. That whole first, well, it's kind of the second act, but where he's in the training, like the fight on the lake, and also immediately after that, you talk about Liam Neeson not being a great actor. He isn't, but there's one scene where he talks about, I know the rage that drives you. You know, I had a love once, my great love, and you know the grief. The anger strangling the grief until the memory of your loved one is just poison in your veins, and then one day you catch yourself wishing the person you loved had never existed, so you'd be spared your pain. Like that's what a beautiful soliloquy for a silly Batman picture.
But like, where is that in Nolan's other movies? that is like,
Wow.
it's so true. Like
I find it really interesting. Yeah, sorry, I'm cutting you off. I find it really interesting. One thing I was going to ask you specifically, DL, is that a lot of Liam Neeson movies, and Riggs, you may know this, one of the key criticisms of Nolan is that there isn't much to his characters. They're effectively fairly one-dimensional, or they just don't have great build to them. Whereas in this, he's got so much history to take from. It's like he can't fuck this up.
Yeah. No, I actually. Does anybody else wish that this movie was just like the entire 8 years he was off training to become Batman?
Oh yeah, that would have been cool.
Like that would have been the movie.
Yeah.
That's what I realized. I was watching this movie. I was like, why isn't it that?
Ooh, let's rewrite that. That's great.
Yeah.
Let's get ChatGPT to rewrite it that way.
Because I mean, he basically.
Fuck, don't even get me started. Get me started on this AI shit. I'll fucking talk your ear off, mate. Fuck that shit.
Dude,
Fuck robots. I don't even use the automated telling things at the goddamn supermarket. I go through and I say hello to the nice lady and she puts the shit in my bag and I go home. Everyone's standing around trying to scan a chicken on their own.
Yeah. Is it ironic that you say fuck robots and that's what most people probably hope will happen by the end of this? Look, let's not get distracted by AI. Let's talk about just a couple of others then. So my actual favorite part of this whole movie is Michael Keaton. That's the wrong thing. Michael Caine as
he's great,
Alfred. Yeah. Like he is everything in this. Like, and I mean, he's a very historied actor, but like the thing he brings to this that got me the most was the comedy he brings. Like the little subtle jabs at Bruce. Like even when they first sit down on the plane together and he's like, and they're having that conversation about leaving him everything. It's you can borrow the rolls if you want. Just bring it back with a full tank. Like everything he brings to this, like the emotion, the darkness, is great.
It's very familial. Like it makes you feel like you do feel like they're family. He sells it.
I like Cockney Alfred as well, more than like Michael Gough or even the out there voice actor from the animated show. Like I like the come down here, Alfred. I can see very well from here. Thank you very much. Like that kind of like he's like straight out of a Muppets Christmas Carol. It's like he just walked off the set.
And he brings that Britishness with aplomb. I bloody love it. Speaking of Britishness, Cillian Murphy, he's great in this too.
He is creepy, and I remember this was like his creepy era. Wasn't he on like Red Eye? Didn't he do like a movie Red Eye where he was just this like
Red Eye's a great movie.
Yeah, but he's a weirdo in that, isn't he? He like stalks her and.
Well, yeah, he's kind of like an assassin in a way, but I don't want him.
I forget, but
it's good.
But he's got that creepy vibe, and
I haven't seen that one.
Yeah, another villain. I wish like we kind of got two, or I thought half baked in this. Like I would have I get that you can have two, but I would have liked a fuller backstory for one of them.
Who, the villains?
One of them, yeah, either Scarecrow or Ra's al Ghul, which we kind of just get his like in a very heartfelt monologue, his entire backstory. In like one scene.
Well, I wonder if it was always the plan for Ra's al Ghul to come back for the final movie and fill out their backstory. I wonder if that was the plan.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that there was going to be more Joker, but he died.
I thought he was going to be a smaller part, but like fair. I think the thing I like about Cillian Murphy. Sorry, before you jump in there is like I like the mystery about that character. He just sort of appears, and he is this terrifying.
That's actually a good point.
Point. He's fully formed.
Like. You don't need to know anything about him. You just know that he is there to scare the shit out of you.
I'm just kind of like, where did he come from? Like
the shadows.
You know what I mean? But I guess you're right. You adding any more kind of takes away some of the mystique.
Yeah,
you've convinced me.
Fuck, that didn't take long.
Yeah. Hey.
I think he's great. His American accent is really forced, and his diction is really intense.
True.
Like, there's the line where he's like, there's nothing convenient about his symptoms. Like, just he's hitting some of those vowels really hard, and I fucking love it.
I really
like
that part.
I'm so excited for Oppenheimer, man. He's deserved this opportunity to be a star in a Nolan picture for a long
I'm surprised he hasn't had it. I mean, he is like we say, a long-term collaborator. I'm surprised he hasn't been the lead. Like in Inception, he was like fifth lead. Like he was so far down the pecking order, but he was so good in that.
He's really great. It's Sunshine I rewatched recently.
We talked
great.
about
28
that.
Days Later, he's really good in. yeah, just exceptional.
Hold
Let's
on.
talk about-
You guys are sleeping on. You're sleeping on Flass. What a performance by Lieutenant Floss.
Oh yeah, what's his name?
Floss.
I can't remember his name.
Falafel stand vendor.
Floss.
Floss.
Falafel
I
stand-
have kids to feed. Floss. What?
Yeah.
They don't like falafel? Are you kidding me?
Flass for starters,
Flass.
not
What-
floss. Floss is the things for dental hygiene.
Whatever. He's lower than Floss. You get my point. You guys are
What's
sleeping
the
on him.
actor's name? He's a really good actor. I can't remember his name.
He's
though. I feel
definitely
terrible.
that guy. I've seen him, like, you know how they do on the Ringer podcasts. I've seen him in a bunch of stuff, and I just cannot remember where I know him from.
That guy.
He is that guy.
Hang
I'm on it.
Oh, we're gonna see who gets there first. Mark Boone Jr.
Great, yeah, good stage name, Mark Boone. Fun to say.
Apparently he's lovely too. A friend of mine worked on a picture with him that he was shooting here some years ago, and said he was just
He
sweet.
stole all the falafel man's money.
He did. He punched him in the.
He punched him in the nuts.
He punched him in the nuts and took all of.
But
his
he's lovely
chickpeas.
aside from that.
But he's a really nice person.
It's a classic. Speaking of the pacing, it's a classic non-linear Nolan narrative in this movie, which at least for the first, as you say, 2, maybe 3 acts, kind of weaves in his backstory quite nicely. And I thought that wouldn't work for me, but then as soon as I was watching it and I clicked back into remembering how the film goes, I was like, oh yeah, this is great.
Yeah, it's up until the end of the second act, which is you can pinpoint exactly to a moment where he climbs into the cave and is surrounded by the bats, and the journey theme that Hans Zimmer and Thomas
we'll
Newton
talk about
Howard
that.
wrote all of a sudden becomes the hero theme. That's your moment, and that's when we no longer keep flitting back and forth.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a moment because I think, well, obviously Hans Zimmer, what a legend, but like this is peak Zimmer for me, absolute peak. Joe, what do you think? Nolan just couldn't help himself with that non-linear jumping backs and forwards.
Yeah, I mean, is there a movie that doesn't in some way dilate time?
Absolutely not. No.
He made a World War II movie where we
Somehow did
we
it.
literally know everything that happens at the Battle of Dunkirk, and yet he still confused me. No, I think it's cool. I think the way he does that for the most part, I vibe with. I think Tenet was one of the few where I didn't, and even that one, I appreciate what I imagine is a very, very hard task of making everything happen backwards.
Let's not dive into Tenet too much.
No,
'cause
I
we
just
could talk
mean,
about it
you
all the time. But I do think if I could just have understood what they were saying, it would have been I'd have liked the movie. I would have been fine with it. Like, it was good. No?
You know how I feel.
I'm gonna let this little couple's tiff play out and not engage.
It's beautiful. Well, let's talk a bit about the cinematography and world building then, because this is a very different Gotham, to what we saw just a few years before. So I think Batman and Robin came out in 1997, maybe? 1998, I was close. And that was very much carrying on that Tim Burton Gotham City. What are you laughing at?
Because I thought you said tit, and it was because of good old George Clooney's nipples on the Batsuit, and I thought you had a Freudian moment. That's all.
George Clooney's nipples are third bill on that fucking poster. Oh my god.
They actually got a higher billing than Alicia Silverstone and more money.
Got more money, damn you beat me. She
you hear
didn't have bat nipples on her suit because that changes the rating almost immediately.
Exactly. I mean, did you hear the stories about that she got fat shamed in that movie? So like all the very
Wow.
early internet were like, yeah, and she looks phenomenal in that film. Like, I'm sorry, like,
Yeah,
and I know it was the time of where everyone was trying to be Naomi Campbell, everyone was trying to look like a stick, but like, who's fat shaming her, really?
Pigs.
Yeah, I mean, this is like pre Twitter as well. So
Absolutely. All those people get cancelled immediately
Oh,
these days.
back in the simple times.
when you answered the phone and the internet went out.
Yeah.
And we all used to ride penny farthings everywhere and shit.
I still do. I'm a hipster. But let's talk a little bit about Gotham then. We were trying to get into, it's moved away from the gothicness. Like, I feel like this is your field, Regs.
Well, yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. It does. It stopped being as kind of gaudy and over the top. Like, you know, that was a Joel Schumacher trait. He liked things big.
Yeah.
He liked things colorful. He liked things shiny. This is supposed to be more real world. I mean, a lot of it is done on a soundstage, especially the whole third act in the Narrows. But these locations are real locations. That the fight on the frozen lake, they shot that in real time. The cinematographer, Wally Pfister, the most unfortunately named dude in Hollywood, if you ask me, was sliding around on a skiff thing, like on a little sled thing, getting like with a handheld camera, getting shots, like a film camera too, not a digital camera, an actual camera with film in it. Just remarkable, like such a beautiful texture and tone, and it benefits from seeing these movies as a triptych, because the first one is very amber paleted, it's very warm. The middle of the trilogy, The Dark Knight, moves into cooler colors, blue in particular, and by the time you get to The Dark Knight Rises, it's almost black and white. You've got the snow, you've got set against mostly white skies. It really does have a desaturation as Batman's journey comes to a close, and the dedication to allowing things to be dark, for letting texture and real blackness be in the frame. You just don't get that anymore. Nolan's one of the only guys still doing it.
Well, we talked a little bit about Annihilation last week, and there's some real Tarantino moments in that. So, for example, the part where they find the croc shark, and most of the screen is actually dark because the shot's really interestingly done. It's shot as if from within the croc shark. That's a really weird thing to say out loud. And the mouth has been held open from the outside, and all you're seeing is the silhouette of the crocodile's mouth shark looking out at Natalie Portman. And it's that kind of use of dark space that I think Nolan uses, incredibly well. Yeah.
His compositions are... Yeah, they're practical. They have a tactician's mentality where they pinpoint what is the objective of the shot in terms of the story.
Totally.
But they're also, beauty is the wrong word to use, but they are, in terms of compositions, you look at them and it's pleasing to the eye.
And being our resident,
he's not just slapdash doing things, is my point.
Yeah, and being a resident American DL, this is very much, for me, moving from, the Gotham of the Tim Burton stuff where it's all big and clearly fake, to just being New York. Can you see that? Can you see that in this?
Was it filmed in New York? I thought the first one was filmed in Chicago and the second one was filmed in New York.
It was in Chicago.
I think so.
Yeah.
But I think it's supposed to be New York by the look of it and the feel of it, I feel.
I think that Chicago has very Gotham vibes. If you've ever been to Chicago, it's got some really cool architecture. Because basically the little history lesson, Chicago fire burned down the entire city, and they just paid it was like peak, architecture. Like there's a lot of advances in architecture at the time that the city burned down. So they brought these people all in from all over the world to go kind of put their stamp on the city. So I actually, when I watched this movie, having a lot of family from Chicago, really vibed the Gotham of Batman Begins. It felt real. And everybody's heard about South Side Chicago, which is basically the Narrows, so but worse.
I think in terms of the world building, though, I think it works, that city specifically and how it's portrayed works really well for this. There was one bit that I was a bit like, that doesn't look anything like America. That's clearly a countryside in England. So at the end of the movie, when Bruce burns his house down, the League of Shadows burn Bruce's house down, and they're up, and it's the scene where Michael Caine's like, "Do you want to fix all of it the way it was, sir?" And they talk about refixing the South Wing or whatever it is. If you look at that shot, it is just like a British field. It's not. It's definitely. There's no chance that's in America. That's 100% where Chris Nolan grew up in Wales, and he's gone, "Oh yeah, we'll just use that field."
Yeah, probably. Also, why did the house explode?
Great question.
It's just exploding
Great
everywhere.
question.
It's a brick house. It's
Asbestos.
stone.
Well, yeah, bats are combustible. I don't know if you know that, but it's...
Like, I was like, this is like a Die Hard movie. They run into the elevator. It's like...
They use like a little bit of like terps on the floor and a bit of petrol. It's like, gasoline, that'll blow the house up for sure.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, that was a little fantastical, wasn't it? I think speaking of world building, though, it's quite hard to get past his suit creation, because I feel like that is almost part of the world for this Batman.
For sure.
I really liked the tactical way it's done, and that they used a lot of the Wayne Enterprises tech as well. Because it's something almost that I'd never seen that. I'd always just seen him like going back to what came before it. Like the Batsuit was just there. He just had it. He just sort of like fell into it. Whereas this, he's got the armored plating, and it was for soldiers, but it cost too much to put into like the line of fire. I find that fascinating and really interesting that he had so much imagination to go that deep into, that one part of his mythos, the suit.
They basically said, when in doing research, what is going to happen in these industries in the next 10 years? What is microfiber going to look like? What is tactical gear going to look like? It was really practical, and it also it kind of resets itself in the sequel, where the guy's like, didn't you notice it was your baby out there pancaking cars on the 7 o'clock news or whatever? It's like the first time the Tumblr comes out with a couple of people at home from Wayne Enterprise going, hey, didn't we build that? Didn't we build that shit? That's our fucking, they painted it black, but that's our shit, isn't it? That always messed with my head. Like, why doesn't anyone recognize
My favorite bit is
stuff?
it's that classic of they painted it black, so it's a different thing. No one realizes it. It's like Superman with his glasses. Glasses off. Oh, you're a different person.
Your precious armory.
People in the DC universe are dumb.
That's from that Batman sketch again.
Your precious armory gratefully accepted. We will need it.
Hey, let's not get too deep into Bane. We've got that to come.
But the point being, though, is that not a part of the comics? Or do we have anybody that actually read the comics on this podcast currently?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't read every single
course.
comic
He
that's
started in
been
the 40s,
published
so.
since 1939.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like there's always an explanation, whenever that he has something. But the suit and all that shit came out of thin air when the first comics came out, the Bill Finger.
Yeah, because it does feel like that would be a natural place for the plot to go, because it also implicates like him and his family in war, create like a Tony Stark kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It has that vibe.
Yeah, very much. In the first story though, you don't know Bruce Wayne and Batman are the same person until the very end of the book.
Oh wow.
Like if you pulled that off the rack in the 30s, you wouldn't know that until the last
That's
page.
interesting.
My favorite,
So I
you mentioned Iron Man. My favorite thing about Iron Man was there's a whole section of the comics where, in the movie, he says just, I am Iron Man at the end of it. There's a whole section of comics where he does keep a secret identity and he pretends it's his bodyguard for absolutely ages. Yeah. And it's so random. It's absolute nonsense. Yeah.
Just puts the target on this random guy.
Totally. Well, let's talk a bit about action then, because there are a good few action scenes in this. And one thing DL knows about me well is that I like very intimate action. That sounds a really weird thing to say out loud on a podcast, but
hand
wow,
hand jobs with prolonged eye contact.
Correct.
Close.
Aggressive eye contact. I like to say. I actually think my favorite fight scenes are like the ones early. And we mentioned the Ducard on ice fighting with Liam Neeson. That it's an action scene, but it's a very subtle, it's almost a mature action scene for a comic book movie.
Definitely, it had. There's a real geography to it. It has a balletic, cut structure, and it was executed only over a few hours. Like they shot on that lake, and then a few hours later, that lake was no longer there. It was,
wow!
It was like. There's a real urgency to it because of that. And I think it does set up like, oh, this is going to be something. And then as soon as he gets in the costume, I understand Nolan's idea of, we need to have the audience feel like what it would feel like being attacked by Batman, which it would be a melee of just, elbows and fists. And, you couldn't see much. All it would be, franticness and that cutting and that closeness, those really long lenses. It does suffer. You can't get that geography, that you kind of need.
And I think that works really well in a similar vein for the scene with the shipping containers, where it's almost like he's using all of his ninja skills, but it's exactly that when he does drop down into the middle of 6 guys and he fights them all off. It's fascinating and phenomenal.
That is a criticism some people give, right? Like they say that the action you can't really see it, yada yada. But I agree with Nolan's take that you want to. Totally. I loved the fact that I didn't really see everything. I thought it actually, the vibe it gave was like, oh man, I wouldn't want to fight this guy.
Yeah, enhances it.
I
totally.
quite liked it. Yeah,
it's a bit like if you were talking about the Pattinson movie before, the very first fight scene where he just walks up to all those guys with skulls painted on their face and kicks the crap out of them. It's like it takes all the mystery away. It's like, yeah, right, he's a dude. We know he can deflect a bullet, great, but we know what he can do. Whereas with this, it's like it is almost like quick cuts the way a Liam Neeson movie would to make it look like he's actually doing stuff. But actually, Christian Bale can do it.
They also but they used a style of fighting that hadn't been used on screen before. It's called Casey fighting style, and it's all close quarters, elbows and fists and headbutts and things like that. You know, at the very beginning, how the guy's like, you know, and I am the devil, and then he headbutts him, but he kind of whips him in the head with his own head. Like it's really weird, and that's what it is. It's about this sort of close quarters. You know, like boxing, but with the no rules kind of
whips
business.
his head back and forth, some would say. I think the action, the climax of the action is probably the worst part for me. So like the final, this is all spoilers by the way, it doesn't matter. The bit where they're chasing the train down and everything's going crazy throughout Gotham. And I'm a bit like, for one, the biggest plot hole is within this part of the movie. I'm going to save it till we finish. But I didn't, I did like that it came down to just, you know, Descartes and Batman on the train together, but it just felt a bit like out of place considering it had all been so personal up to that point.
I didn't mind it. It wasn't like this prolonged climax. It was pretty quick.
Yeah, that's fair.
You know what I mean? Every movie thinks it needs this like 30-minute fight. And like I quite enjoyed it. So, but you know, they teach their own. Like I get it. A lot of people don't like that line. Like I don't have to
save you.
Yeah, I don't have to kill you, but I don't have to save you or whatever it is. And I liked that line too. There's a lot of lines in this movie on rewatch though that I did not like.
Right, like
that
what?
were very cheesy. And you just mentioned one. What was it? Where he's like, I'm the devil. He's like, you're practice. I was like, come on, dude.
Yeah.
Like this feels way more 80s than I remember it the last time I watched. Like it just was. There's a lot of that.
About the creme de la creme is fucking I'm Batman, and then he looks at Ray Shabaja, the fantastic, you know, actor, looks at him and goes, nice coat. What the fuck are we doing?
Dude,
He's great, by the way.
I have 3 bullet points where I'm just like, Batman's kind of a troll in this, and that was one of them. The other one is like, where are you? Here.
Like, oh, I love that scene.
And then he just says, excuse me, as he's blowing up walls through the I'm like, what? Are you just like a zinger guy now?
I'm gonna jump ahead here. That scene there where he just blew up the hole in the cell of the prison. Yeah. Those prisoners are just leaving, right? They're just gonna walk out. He's just allowed 2 prisoners to walk free.
It's a great point. I mean, but like there were bigger things at stake.
Yeah, I get that.
The entire water
Rachel
supply
was dying.
No, the water supply of Gotham as well.
Yeah, well, why don't we then put a bit of context around what we're talking about? So the whole kind of journey of the movie is leading up to effectively the League of Shadows, who Bale thought he'd killed at the beginning, coming back. And their big plan is to raise Gotham to the ground and restore it from scratch, right?
They've done this in time immemorium. They've gone back and forth through history. Not back and forth, that's time travel. But throughout history, they've you know, they sacked Rome. They put plague rats on ships, burned London to the ground. Probably had something to do with the Chicago fire as well. Let's face it.
Yeah,
I think so.
At this point, their track record is strong.
Yeah, every time a civilization reached the height of its decadence, they return to restore the balance. And I think that's
he mentions the Mayans at one point too, and I was like, that's
COVID.
Ballsy.
What else?
COVID. It's a League of Shadows.
So can I just how do we feel about that?
Bitches. Sorry, that was a slam dunk. I haven't heard a COVID joke in a little while. That really worked for me.
How do we feel about that though? Like that we're behind everything. I'm of 2 minds. I'm like, okay, that's great. But then he like tied it back to, oh yeah, and we already tried to take Gotham out by economically. And I was like, oh, just stop. You don't have to be behind everything. I don't know.
I like
maybe
the idea
of
a you know, Ra's al Ghul as a character is fucking fantastic. He's such a great character in the comics as well. He always refers to Batman as detective. In the books, like he calls him detective,
like buddy,
as opposed to pal or whatever.
He used to call you by your name.
And
no, that's pretty good.
I just like his, you know, his whole ethos, his whole idea is it's, you know, not too far removed from Thanos, but without the sort of megalomaniacal thing. He really is. It really is almost altruistic. He believes that you know, keeping things on an even keel will ensure humanity's survival. And I like that as a motivation, as opposed to I just want riches and guns and stuff.
No, for sure. I do too. It reminded me of this is kind of lame and not at all film or comic books, but Ray Diodato wrote a book on like basically how civilizations rise and fall.
Sure.
He's a big finance guy. And to me, if you like lean into that, where it's like we basically are the shadow behind the scenes that kind of manipulate debt markets, and I like that. I thought that was like actually believable.
I mean, it's interestingly playing into a lot of conspiracy theories that we get these days about everything, right? Like there's that apparently that family who run America, in the background, and I mean, there's like lizard people. Like it's playing into all of those conspiracy theories that people love and like to talk about. In 2005, apparently, he was ahead of the curve.
Anyway,
lizard folk.
All right, let's talk.
Threw that in, dude.
Of course, yeah. Let's talk about CGI then. Like, it's classic again, Nolan. Like minimal use of CGI where possible. I love the sets he does. Reeves, you talked about it a moment ago. Like the fact that he used so many real sets. I mean, it's just in such stark contrast to what we see now. Tony Stark contrast to like bunch of the Marvel stuff. Like you look at all that now, especially stuff like Ant-Man. Jesus, that looked horrible.
Yeah, it's all overlit. Everything's, I don't know how people can watch things in high frame rate with not think it's a video game, but particularly this film, I think Nolan's still using set extensions. He's using matte painting work. Like that castle on the mountain is just a matte painting or it's an extension from a model. The entire back half of that film, the train sequence and stuff like that, when that train drops down into that, car park, that's a miniature. That's like the last miniature work you'll ever see. And in 4K, I'm gonna tell you this much: it doesn't hold up, but it's a little obvious. But it looks like the start of Terminator 2. There's all those little tiny skulls.
I love miniature work in anything. Put it in anything.
For some reason, I don't mind it either. It doesn't take me out of it.
Neither.
I love it. Yeah,
even though I know it's
the craftsmen behind it are just
absolutely. All right, then. Well, you mentioned about music before, then, Reeks. Do you want to talk about the music in this before we move on?
Hans Zimmer, fucking. Oh, this guy. Yeah. Wang. Actually, I just watched the trailer for the new trailer for Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning. Part 1,
yeah, that's good.
And there's some bwangs in that. They're bwanging all over the place, mate.
I joked when we did the Inception one for our 100th anniversary. Our 100th episode. That Hans Zimmer ruined cinema for like 10 years for me because every film had to have a wham.
Trailers at the very least. That was a good episode, by the way.
Thank you.
Thank you. I love Inception. But I mean, he has been doing interesting things, sonically for a really long time. And the one that this is one of my favorite scores of his. I think my favorite is probably Interstellar. But his score
movie.
for Man of Steel. There's a behind the scenes video where he got together like 12 of the best drummers in the world. There's like Danny Carey and Sheila E. and all these people. And he's like, so this is the groove. But he talks like, I can't do the German, whatever he do,
He's called Hans, of course he speaks like that.
Yeah, of course. And he's...
Welcome to the party, pal.
No, he wasn't trying to get Barabons off anyone. He's trying to talk to these drummers, and he's sitting in a circle, and he's like, okay, so this is the basic groove, and we're all going to play the basic groove, and then we're just going to kind of start getting, a little familiar, and everybody's personalities are going to start coming out as musicians. Like, that to me is incredibly interesting. And the fact that he used like razor blades to play violins for the Joker theme for Dark Knight, like... Yeah, an exceptional.
Getting ahead of it here, Reeks. We're doing that soon. Don't get too far ahead of it.
But just as a musician, he's doing things that other people aren't doing.
Absolutely. And in this score literally speaks volumes to me because my only real knowledge of music or having a theme or something like that attached to a movie was actually the Michael Keaton Batman film, and I was like, that's the only one that ever resonated with me. I was like, this is what music for a film should sound like. This one really changed that for me.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I said before, that sort of that just those two simple chords as a rising, journey theme, and then when that hits and becomes the hero theme, and then at the end becomes the triumph theme, like to have the DNA stretch over the whole film. Yeah, well, that's my My wife always tells me that I do that. She's like, you don't sound anything like the fucking song. And now I'm going to hear myself on a podcast do it. So she's probably right. Sorry, babe.
No, I think I agree. The culmination of it, it's like tied into the emotionality of like Bruce Wayne and his
Great
journey.
word, emotionality.
Is it a real word? I don't know.
No,
we'll find out.
It sounds made up.
I think so.
I really like. I've seen him live. He's just awesome.
Wow, really?
I'll just go on and on. Yeah,
Where do you see him live?
I saw him live at Coachella, and I saw him in Sydney.
He doesn't
Motherfucker
feel like a
played at
Coachella.
Coachella?
Yeah.
Motherfucker played at Coachella
That's awesome.
a while back.
Was it
yeah.
him then Kanye or what the fuck happened?
Dude, I don't know. They,
Kanye's
but,
terrible live.
but he played. He played
No,
it-
he
yeah.
didn't. I just
two
imagine
Oscars in his lifetime for that and Dune.
I just imagine imagine he's completely different. He goes and plays Coachella and he's like a hardcore techno DJ.
No, he goes to dude. No, he goes to Bonobo.
Of course he does. But no,
What's his name? You were just talking about Batman '89. Danny Elfman was in
Danny Elfman.
Oingo Boingo, and they've played Coachella plenty of times.
Shut up.
my
Was he?
God.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
Look, let's talk about the pinnacle of this movie then. The movie ends effectively with a chase through Gotham with Batman on a train chasing Ducat, who we find out is Ra's al Ghul. Raish will never get it right. And the plan is they've stolen this water vaporizer from Wayne Industries. Now, this is the moment I start to pick up some little plot holes in the film. So they've been putting poison in the water supply for months, right? They've been poisoning the water supply so they can use this vaporizer to turn everyone crazy and incite all of their worst fears. Now, does this imply that no one's boiled a kettle? No one's had a hot shower? No one's made pasta in the last few months? Because I'm telling you, I do all those things pretty much every day. And if it was fear toxin in there, I would be pretty screwed.
So what you're saying is that if you heat this water, it evaporates.
That's what happens
the
with water,
vapor.
yes.
Like there would be a portion of it that would become vapor. You're absolutely right. Yeah. I mean, one thing is don't eat pasta every day, mate. You'll get constipated. Just like I know you got a carb load for some shit, but let's be serious.
40-year-old speaking over here, of course.
I mean, I take a hot shower. That'd be a freaky
Steam.
shower. Yeah. No.
Steam.
So true. I
right
never
there.
thought of it. Why doesn't
So,
it
like-
evaporate the water in people's bodies?
Well, exactly. That's another thing as well. I'm like, you're 80% water or more.
But aren't we sure? Are we sure they've been putting it in for weeks or just the last couple days?
Well, the point is they've been doing it for a long time because they even Gordon says like they've been doing it for ages. They can't put a total on how long they've been doing it for.
Mm.
And if you think to saturate a water supply,
He says, well, you got to shut down the mains. And he's like, you don't understand. They've been at this for weeks.
yeah,
Mm.
yeah.
So
Yep. Well, I
Where
guess.
are the drugs going?
Yeah.
But that's
Swear to me.
do you want
That's
to give
why-
the MVP of this movie though? Is the dude is like he's a plot contrivance. I think that's his actual name in IMDb. He's the one who's at the water and power, and he's like, if that train gets here,
Yeah,
it's gonna
yeah.
blow. Like that.
my favorite.
does it like
My
6
favorite thing about
times,
that
like-
is, and I think this every time I see the movie, he says the same things that other characters say just 2 minutes later.
yeah,
Like,
yeah. It's like we keep needing to be reminded of it. Like what the fuck?
yeah, it's like we get it, dude. Like he's like, it's gonna blow, and he's like got that old man voice as well. I'm like, dude, chill.
He does, yeah. Also, by the way, Denny O'Neil, who created the character of Raz, actually says it's Raish.
Ah, there you go. Good to know. Well, look, what we do now is we like to talk a little bit about the tones and themes of the movie. We've kind of touched on a little bit, but I'd love to know, DL, more about the tones and themes you saw in this movie that resonated with you.
Yeah. There's the obviously overcoming your fears.
Of course.
It's a big one. But I think one of the cooler ones for me is like the idea of justice as an absolute or subjective concept.
Interesting.
When you look at like Bruce Wayne's interpretation of justice and how he creates it and finds it.
He's
and
either a
finds it.
1 or a 0, that guy.
And well, I would argue his is more subjective than say Ra's al Ghul's, which is a very, very absolute
Sure.
justice. So I really liked that theme, and then maybe like the duality of identity and maybe symbols and their import to creating legacy. Like Nolan plays a lot with that, I think.
Nice.
And all three of those are my favorites.
Riggs?
I think probably the strongest for me is that grief, while being an important totem to hold on as a symbol of your everlasting love for someone, can't be the thing that cripples you. Like he overcomes the grief. He doesn't end up taking the path of the League of Shadows, which is the path of assassins and murderers. And what Raz says to him about it being, the grief, it's just like, strangling you. He overcomes that and decides to use it as a he stands up for the people who were his parents, the people who couldn't protect themselves. It's like that line where he's like, the man had a gun, and Raz said, would that have stopped you? Like that kind of idea of how far would you go, and he is willing to go as far as needs. So yeah, grief being a something that you overcome and become a better person because of it, doesn't cripple you.
Couldn't have said it better myself. You both nailed tones and themes. We don't need to say any more. What we usually do is now we say 3 best and 3 worst, which is 3 reasons why you might want to watch the movie and 3 reasons why you might not.
Sure.
But as there are 3 of us, I thought maybe we could each supply a best each and a worst each. DL, what's your first and only this time best?
I would have to say the Gordon plus Batman cadence and dynamic, and really just both those actors are studs.
Cadence, you can tell you work in tech.
Yeah, Jesus, you can tell it's fair.
Riggs, what's your best for the movie?
My best, well, as a recommendation, it's Nolan Begins.
Yes.
This is where we start to see his style kind of creeping out, and the movies he did in between them honed that style until all of a sudden, motherfucking Tenet.
Yes, your favorite. So I actually said for my best, I put the one brief scene of interplay between Michael Caine and Morgan Freeman, and it is that we talked about it right at the beginning, I think, where Bruce Wayne's been poisoned, and there's just a moment where Morgan Freeman leaves and Michael Caine just goes, Lucius, and there's a history there, and I'm like, I want to see that film.
Yeah, man. Fox and well, he said Mulder. and
it's the X-Files, the new version.
Hey, man, I would watch a version of that where it was Michael Caine, and they could even play Mulder and Scully. I don't give a shit, man.
My God, that'd be great. That's amazing. Gender switched Scully for one of them. All right, what are your worst? DL, you could start.
I just think they kind of yada-yada'd over Bruce just becoming a ninja. Like,
Sure.
It happens, like, I want that. I wish this whole movie was about that. I already talked about that. But it kind of just feels like he comes home from college. He's just been kicked out. He was in Princeton. He gets a lecture
He
from
was away
Alfred.
for 7 years.
Yeah, but hear me out. He gets a lecture from Alfred. He goes, he's really pissed, wants to kill the guy that killed his parents, doesn't get it. Has one talk with the crime boss, looks out into the night sky, and then just suddenly sprints towards a Chinese cargo ship. It's just like, what? Like that happened all too fast for me.
That's how you become a ninja. Did you not know that? That's how it happens.
Yeah, and then we see like, the everything else, and we know what happens, and he comes back and Alfred just like acts like nothing happened. Like,
The prodigal son
he says to him,
returns.
what does he say? He's like, "Oh, you look very fashionable. Part for the bud."
yeah, it's like that. What,
dude?
7 years?
And they'd already written him off as dead as well. So that's another.
It was just a bit clunky for me, that
Yeah,
part,
okay.
and I kind of wish that it was just the whole movie about how he became Batman.
Sure.
And I don't
Sure.
know. Yeah, but
Riggs, what's your worst?
Yeah, well, I mean, do you get an audience going to see a movie where Batman doesn't end up in the costume because it takes a full hour before he does in this
Wasn't that
picture.
the Gotham TV show? Wasn't that the whole thing was him not in it at the very end after like 12 seasons?
How you can make a movie that's entirely a TV show that's entirely second act is
Crazy.
amazing.
Yeah.
Like, that show was absolutely crazy.
And awful.
Yeah, it wasn't great. For me, for this picture though, my worst is Joey from Dawson's Creek. No, it's not really. Batman just talks too much. He's communicates. He should be a fucking ninja and silent. Like, just get about and do the shit. Stop telling everybody. The city's going to tear itself apart from mass panic. Like, we get it.
You know why that was, Riggs? And it's my worst, which is he learned from the absolute master of talking way too much in scenes that he shouldn't be speaking in, which is Liam Neeson. It's come full circle. That's the reason.
Can't blame the Liam Neesons. God damn it.
Oh dear. Well, all right then. What we do now is we like to rate this movie, but we obviously do not have a rating system. We don't say 5 stars. We don't say 3 bat symbols out of 5 bat symbols. We don't say anything percentage-wise. What we do is we like to say, is this movie better or worse than the most average movie we could think of, which Reegs knows is Aquaman 2018. And Reegs, firstly, do you agree with that being the most average movie that we could think of?
It is so middle tier.
It's
is
midi level.
It is just right, like middle road all the way.
All
yeah,
the
absolutely.
way.
It's perfect rating
So
system.
why do you think this is better than Aquaman, and why?
Well, there's no fish people in it.
That's very true.
Got a real problem with fish people. No, it's just a better executed picture. It's a better script. It understands what it's doing more, even though, you know, Aquaman did sort of was kind of had it with a little tongue-in-cheek action going on, which I appreciated. But yeah, Batman is a prestige,
absolutely,
superhero picture that you don't get these anymore.
We've talked about the
They just-
Prestige
they don't
already.
exist.
Don't bring that film up. It's a good film.
Not the Prestige, which is also a good picture.
Yeah.
DL then, is this better or worse than Aquaman 2018?
This is, of course, better than Aquaman 2018, and only because there are no octopuses playing the banjo or banging on
Banjo?
not banjo, banging on what do we call them? The drums, the
Bongo.
bongos. There's no bongo octopus. so-
Well, if he was banging on a banjo, I'd be really
That was
worried.
actually Hans Zimmer.
exactly. We substituted Hans Zimmer for the octopus bongo guy.
Was he underwater? Brilliant. Yeah, of course it is. It's a fantastic movie, and I really like this film. All right, then. So we'll just quickly rate then the Chris Nolan movies, the 7 we've talked about. And I know you have yours ready to go, Reegs.
Okay.
DL's obviously forgotten. So we've talked so far about Tenet. We've talked about Interstellar. We've talked about The Prestige. We've talked about Dunkirk. We've talked about Batman Begins, obviously, Memento, and Inception. What's your ranking for them, DL?
For me, it's got to be Inception, number 1.
Numero uno.
From there, it gets
The
interesting.
Wild West.
Yeah, with Batman Begins, look, I think I still have to pick The Prestige
Yeah,
as
okay.
2. And then it's probably a toss-up between Batman Begins and Memento. I'd probably go Batman Begins, Memento. And I feel bad saying that because I think Memento is probably a more hard film to make, but then it goes
Especially on a shoestring
Interstellar,
budget.
Tenet. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. All right. All
So
right.
Tenet's at the bottom, Interstellar's at 5.
How did I guess that was going?
Yeah.
Riggs?
Well, yeah. Number 1's Inception because all the reasons the DL likes it for. They're all the reasons.
be a
so
good
go and listen
film,
to
I
that
hear.
episode because it's wonderful. Yeah, just everybody go back and listen to that episode, and you'll all those reasons. And it's
So
fine.
100th, baby.
I'm a big Interstellar apologist.
Are you?
I love it, man. I think it's great, and I don't know if you know this, guys.
I actually really like Interstellar.
Yeah, it's really well executed. It's an original, high concept sci-fi picture, like Annihilation, and it's I don't know if you know this, guys, but the 4th dimension is love.
That's why I can't. I just can't.
That's my whole shit.
I just can't.
Then the Prestige, just an incredibly original piece as well. I know that it was based on some stuff that Jonathan Nolan wrote, but a short story I believe, but really well executed. Doesn't play its hand even though it probably should. I really like Tenet.
Yeah.
I think it's doing exactly what it wanted to do without making apologies for itself. It is confusing and catch up. And I like movies that challenge me. And then it begins, see the previous 90 minutes, and then Memento, really great, but kind of lives in a period of time where a lot of that stuff was kind of happening. That kind of time shifting stuff. Tarantino responsible for that. I mean, Katie Holmes was in one called Go, and Dunkirk at the bottom because I've seen it once,
Right.
and it didn't really resonate. I don't know why.
So Dunkirk's one, and I'm going to say I'm an apologist for that one. I think the opposite, actually. I genuinely liked it the first time I saw it, but had not appreciated it as much as as good as I think it is. So when we rewatched it for the podcast, I was like, oh my God, this is actually amazing. So I would say, and without bleating too much on this, Inception's probably my favorite of the films we've talked about. I'm then going to say Memento. I still love that movie. And next week, I'll be talking about the book you sent me, Reegs. Thank you very much for that. But I've already got into the bit where they're talking about Memento. and it's fascinating. Like, it's a shoestring budget. They couldn't get anyone to buy it. It's a really interesting story, but the film itself is just amazing. Then I'm going to say Batman Begins. I think it's probably my third favorite of the films we've talked about. It's phenomenal. And then Dunkirk, Interstellar, Prestige, and Tenet. I think Prestige probably should be higher up if I had the recency bias of seeing it more recently. But just on the how I feel right now, that's how I go.
You sent me a message when you watched Batman Begins, and you were like, "I watched Batman for the show," and I was like, "Okay, cool." Was that the first time you'd seen it?
No.
Okay, right.
No. I think it's just because you'd sent me a message.
What are you
saying,
living under a fucking
yeah,
bridge or
I
something?
think it's just because you were
Troll.
saying you'd watched it, and I was like, yeah, me too. Let me say I've done
That's
it
right.
too.
Yeah, I sent you a little clip. My cat was sitting there watching it with me. She was loving it.
Yeah.
All right, what we do now is we like to do a bit of true or false trivia, and I've split this up this week. So instead of just me chucking true or false trivia at you two, I'm going to ask you each 2 pieces of trivia, and whoever gets more right wins, I guess. I mean, that's about as good as I could think of. So, true or false trivia. DL, you can go first. Christian Bale actively disliked the Batman suit. Is that true or is that false?
True.
It is true. And he says it actually helped his performance as the Dark Knight because he was perpetually in a foul mood while wearing it. I actually really like that. All right. Riggs, trivia, true or false? You know what? I've actually put the same one twice, so I fucked this up completely.
It's true.
It's true. You're right.
It's true. I get points. Double points.
That's triple points now.
While shooting on the streets of Chicago, a person accidentally crashed into the Batmobile. Is that true or is that false?
I don't believe you. You tell me lies and subterfuge.
Lies and subterfuge. They actually did. Apparently, the driver was drunk and said he.
Dad, come on, mate. Jesus.
And he said he hit the car in a state of panic because he believed it was an alien spacecraft.
Shut up. That's too weird.
By the way, this is all. I never really prefaced this ever, but this is all IMDb trivia, so it's probably all nonsense, and I like that about it.
Subterfuge is definitely
True to IMDb, anyway.
Yeah.
All right, final one then. This is to both of you. You can both answer.
All right.
In the early minutes of each of the Nolan trilogy of Batmans, the main villain actually disguised himself as one of his own henchmen. Is that true or is that false?
In each of the films,
In each of the 3 movies of the trilogy, the main a main villain of the piece disguises himself as one of his own henchmen. Silence.
I'm just thinking, does Bane?
Yeah, I don't think Bane does it.
They're on the plane.
You can't. Hey, no conferring here. You got to come up with your own answers.
Okay. Yeah, no, I'm going to say yes then because you're not wrong about the plane. But also, I mean, Catwoman pretends that she's half a dozen other people. So I don't know if that counts. But
Is
I
she
don't
a
think
villain?
she's the main villain.
False. I'm going false.
All right, so we've got a good line down the middle here. It is actually true. So obviously in this Ducat had subterfuge with his. It's actually Ken Watanabe, who I love, by the way, playing the part of Ra's al Ghul.
fantastic.
The Joker obviously has the clown mask on in that beginning scene, and then Bane acts as one of his henchmen. So they all just have the hood on themselves, and he finally comes out at the end, which I really like. So I can't remember who said what in that, but we all win.
Yay!
Yay! So Riggs, ultimately, what did you think of this movie?
Yeah, I mean, they just don't make these kind of a genre comic book movies anymore. We live in a very different world than this now. The Batman Nolan trilogy, you'll never see the likes of it again. They're always going to be connected. They're always going to have spin-offs. They're always going to dilute. I think this series gets better. And I'm maybe the one person in the world who thinks that Rises is the best of the 3.
Wow,
that is a hot take. Yeah,
spicy.
It is a little bit. Yeah, I just think we'll talk about it, but it's just a more interesting idea than the other two, in my opinion. But yeah, it's a stitch in time, man, and I dig it. And I go back to it, and that score, and I remember seeing it in the cinema, and not knowing who the fuck Christian Bale was.
Wow.
And now Homie got a statue.
Yeah.
Homie got a statue. It's beautiful.
When we get to The Dark Knight Rises, I've got a great story about my viewing experience of that film and how it wasn't quite what I expected it to be. I'm going to leave on tenterhooks with that thought. But thank you, Riggs, for joining us today. We've really loved having you.
Oh, thanks, man. That's both of you. It's been an absolute pleasure. Yeah, like I said, podcasting is something that I do for pleasure. I have such a great time just talking movies and hanging out with cool people. So yeah,
What are you doing here then?
mostly both. Thanks again. Trying to get for my check. I got my check coming.
It's in the mail.
I
Yeah,
guess.
snail mail.
It'll bounce,
Yeah.
but it's in the mail. I used all my checks to buy hotels recently.
Yeah, son of a bitch. All these chicks in the pool.
Riggs, if people want to find you, where can they find you?
Yeah, well, in Melbourne, obviously, like I said, we can just get off, come out the airport and shout my name, and I'll be there shortly. But no, I've got to. I hear that a
Makes
lot.
me think of Lethal Weapon. It feels like Riggs and Murtaugh.
Riggs, yeah. No, actually, people say that sometimes. They say Riggs. I'm like, no, there's an E. It's an E. But yeah, I have a podcast with my friend Addy. It's called the Film Addicts podcast. It's basically like this is just two pals just sitting down, getting silly about cinema. I have another show on YouTube called the Stitch Up, which is a video show that I do with my friends, which is it used to be a more critical piece, but now it's a love of cinema show. And also my filmmaking work is through a company called Hit 66 Sound and Screen. We're on YouTube, we're on Instagram. Come and check out some of the crazy things I do with cameras and lights.
Beautiful.
Awesome.
Well, go and check out their podcast. The Film Addicts is a lot of fun. If you think this is a lot of fun, you'll absolutely like the Film Addicts.
Appreciate it.
DL, do you want to wrap up the show? Where can they find us to start with?
Well, they can find us at Podcast Assemble on Instagram or thepodcastassemble@gmail.com. And if you're on Instagram, if you're on Spotify listening, just pass the pod on.
Pass it on. Let people know
Throw it
about it.
around. Throw it around like a hot potato. Give us a 5-star review. And thank you, Riggs, for joining us. Thank you, Tommy, for hosting. We really appreciated it, and we love doing this. So thank you all, and until next time.
Tally ho.
Tally-o. Laters, Gators.